In today's episode, hundreds of thousands of Tutsis take refuge at the official Technical School of Kigali, ETO, where they believe the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda will keep them safe. Instead, the UNAMIR contingent stationed at ETO abandons the victims, leading to the killings of over 2,000 Tutsis. Massacres continue to spread, taking place in schools, churches, and homes across the country. April 11th, 1994. Massacres perpetrated against the Tutsi in the former Kigali city, Byumba, Cyangugu, Kibungo prefectures. The withdrawal of the Belgian contingent from ETO Kicukiro, Kigali, the massacres in Kicukiro and Nyanza Kicukiro. The Technical School of Kigali, ETO in acronym, was managed by the Salesian Fathers. Since 1963, the Tutsis had taken refuge there and were well received and assisted. As soon as Tutsis took refuge there on April 8, 1994, they were gathered in the same place and they were shot. In particular, they were shot with arrows until April 11, 1994. They were brought to the place named Nyanza of Kicukiro, where they were systematically massacred. In 1994, within the ETO compounds, there was a post of UNAMIR troops who had come in the framework of peacekeeping. That's why the Tutsis had taken refuge there in large numbers, hoping to be protected by these well-armed UN soldiers. Afterwards, UNAMIR abandoned them in the hands of Interahamwe and soldiers ready to massacre them on April 11, 1994. Colonel Rusatira Leonidas brought in numerous soldiers who prevented the Tutsis from fleeing to join the CND, the Rwandan parliament where the RPF soldiers were accommodated. The Tutsis were killed little by little. From Sonatib, on the way towards Nyanza of Kicukiro, they were brought to be exterminated there with grenades before the Interahamwe stripped the victims and finished those who were still breathing. The Belgian contingent stationed at ETO was led by Lieutenant Luc Lemaire, himself commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Dewez, himself under the responsibility of Colonel Luc Marchal, deputy of General Dallaire, commander of UNAMIR. They are the first to be held responsible for the massacres of 2,000 killed on April 11, 1994. Massacres at the Church of Kiziguro Catholic Parish, Byumba Diocese. From 7th to 10th April 1994, the Tutsi coming from different localities began to take refuge in the Church of Kiziguro, where they were told that they were going to be protected. But they were luring them to gather in large numbers because on April 11, 1994, they were killed. The massacres lasted from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They were killed by the Interahamwe, mobilized by the former Burgomestre Gatete Jean-Baptiste, Rwabukombe Onesphore, mayor of Muvumba, Mwange Jean Dodier, Sibomana Martin, Nkundabazungu Augustin, businessman, Niyonzima Deo Gracias, brigade commander of commune of Murambi, Munyakazi, a police officer, Mbuguje Jean Damascene, businessman, Muganga Manasse, Mirasano Emmanuel, Biramahire Kagaru, Karekezi Augustin, Munyabuhoro Pierre Claver, Gakombe Barthazar, Gakwere Alois, Mutsinzi Emmanuel, Karengera Paulin, Inspector of Primary Schools, Musoni François, Manihura Habib, Kabarira Sylvain, etc. These massacres were supervised by soldiers from Gabiro military camp, sent by Major Ngundie Leonard, the former commander of the Presidential Guard of Habyarimana. They were massacred in the courtyard of the parish, near the water tank, in the garden, at the dispensary, near the statue of Virgin Mary, and elsewhere behind the fence walls. There was a small wood. Those who were killed were buried in holes of 60 meters deep, below the primary school. Many Tutsi were thrown in the pit, and most of them were thrown in alive. Dr. Gwamakuba Emmanuel, Sekamana, and Fidel Karangwa, aka Gasongo, as well as others from Kiyombe, are often cited among those who were killed near the pit. Massacres of Tutsis at ADPR Shagasha, Cyangugu. The Shagasha ADPR was a church where many Christians went to pray, among them many Tutsis, which is why they took refuge there. The Tutsis who took refuge in the ADPR were women and children. The men feared they would be killed there. About 60 Tutsi women and children took refuge there from April 11, 1994, when Tutsis started to be killed and their homes burnt down. Even if there were women and children, the Interahamwe would come and select male children to go and kill them. In order to prevent them from being killed, they were dressed in girl clothes. In addition, male Tutsis who had been captured in Shagasha, Munyove, Rwahi sector were brought at Adeper Shagasha to be massacred. Many Tutsis coming from these sectors were thus killed at this church. In the former Gisuma commune, Unuharambuga sector, Gihinga cell, Cyangugu prefecture, currently in Nyamasheke district, Ruharambuga sector, Save cell, on April 11, 1994, almost 50 Tutsis who had gathered in Mukanagara Odette's house were all killed. They had previously been surrounded in this cell before they were all brought to this house and were killed there. In the former Nyamuhunga sector, Chimundu cell, over 1,000 Tutsis had been rounded up by Interahamwe from this locality and they were killed. The Tutsi had taken refuge there from the evening of April 9, 1994, and after numbers had increased, they were all surrounded and killed on April 11, 1994, in broad daylight. They were killed by Interahamwe who came from cells close to this sector, and by municipal police. The Interahamwe were led by the councillor of the sector, Rujigo Francois. The communal police had previously arrived at the Tutsi refugee camps, reassuring them that they were coming to protect them, while it was a trick to keep them together so that they did not flee to other places. Massacres of over 15,000 Tutsis at Hanika Parish, Cyangugu. At Hanika Parish, currently in Nyamasheke district, in Machuwa sector, nearly 15,000 Tutsis who had taken refuge there were killed in the premises they occupied. The premises of the priests, the health center, and the nutritional center, locals who all belonged to the Hanika Parish. Among the Interahamwe who killed them was Alphonse, aka Rasta, son of Pasteur, who was a soldier. It was he whose grenade killed Tutsis, Ngoboka Xavier, and Gashema, the son of Wasabose. The latter was an employee of Gatera Fabien. Among other Interahamwe are Hatungiyaremye Joseph, Hanyurwa Valens, Nyirabahizi Oscar, Michel Bahimaya, Mukono, a trader in Chirambo, who offered beers to the Interahamwe so that they could go and kill with high morale. The Tutsis of the Gatarik commune began to take refuge in the Hanika parish on April 8th and 9th, 1994. They had noticed that the Hutus had started to form groups and to denounce Tutsis, saying they had killed the father of the nation. In other words, President Habyarimana. On April 9th, 1994, a young man who had been killed with a sword by one of his neighbors was buried on April 10th, 1994. In that locality of Muramba Jitwa, the Tutsi who attended the funeral were mocked by Hutus who told them that now they were going to bury theirs forever. On April 11th, 1994, the burgomaster of the former Gatari commune, Rugwizangoga Fabien, arrived on the scene around 12 noon. He had just met with Emmanuel Bagambichi, the prefect of Cyangugu. Sometimes later, around 3 p.m., when the burgomaster had just left the locality, a group of killers attacked the Tutsi refugees to massacre them. Among the killers was a woman by the names of Margarita, who had been a counselor even before the outbreak of the Liberation War in 1990, and who was reputed to have imprisoned many Tutsis on the false pretext that they were accomplices of the Inkotanyi. Massacres of Tutsis at Midiho, EAR, Nyagatovu, Kayonza, Kibungo. In Mukarangi sector, at Midiho, in Nyagatovu cell, on April 11, 1994, more than 200 Tutsis who had taken refuge at EAR Nyagatovu were killed. And the leader of the killers was a merchant, Kanyengoga Thomas, from Kayonza shopping center. Until today, the bodies of the victims of these massacres have never been found to be buried in dignity. Thank you for listening to another episode of Kwibuka Podcast. As always, make sure you leave us a review, sharing what you like about the podcast, and share with others who would be interested in listening.